Welcome to the Daily AI News Digest. It is April 9th, 2026. Today, we're diving into a massive open-source play from Meta, a new model from Anthropic that's being called too dangerous for release, and a major market correction that really signals a new era for the entire industry. This digest is brought to you by bestai.org.
So here's what's on deck. First up, we're going to break down Meta's aggressive new strategy with Llama 5. Then we'll turn to the security and political crisis brewing at Anthropic. After that, we'll take a look at the turbulent market economics, including a really high-profile shutdown, and we'll wrap up with some new data on the public's growing skepticism toward AI.
Okay, let's get right into our top story. Meta has just pulled off a huge strategic move, dropping two completely different AI systems at the same time. And folks, this is a move that's really designed to reshape the entire competitive landscape.
This dual-release strategy, it's a very calculated power play. You see, on one hand, you've got the open-source Llama 5. That's aimed at basically commoditizing high-end intelligence for developers and businesses. But on the other hand, the proprietary Muse Spark agent is being woven directly into WhatsApp and Instagram to capture that everyday consumer market.
The sheer scale of this new capability is what's so stunning. A 5 million token context window. What that means is Llama 5 can process and reason over entire libraries of information. We're talking thousands of pages of legal documents, all in a single go. This was something that was just completely out of reach for any open source model until now.
And as this chart lays out, Meta's free Llama 5 model is now going head-to-head with the most powerful proprietary systems from Google and OpenAI, especially when it comes to context length. By making a model this powerful free for everyone, Meta is really forcing its competitors to justify why their alternatives are so expensive and closed off.
Now, here's what's really crucial: the introduction of RSI and Llama 5. This lets the model effectively build better versions of itself, on its own. And while that could accelerate innovation at an incredible speed, it also brings up some really urgent questions about whether our current safety and governance rules can possibly keep up with an intelligence that is constantly rewriting its own code. All right, let's shift gears to our next story. The narrative here flips from open release to extreme containment. We're now focusing on the crisis that's unfolding over at Anthropic. And a move that's basically unheard of. Anthropic has refused to release its latest model, Claude Mythos. And the reason? Well, internal tests showed that it has potentially catastrophic cybersecurity abilities, leading its own researchers to label it the most dangerous model they've ever built.
So this model showed it could act like a weapons-grade cyber vulnerability tool, finding and exploiting critical software flaws all by itself. This development really signals the end of the so-called transparency era for these frontier AI labs, because the risk of misuse now clearly outweighs the benefit of public access.
And as this timeline shows, the technical crisis is being made worse by a political one. A bitter legal battle with the government over the military's use of its AI has ended with Anthropic being blacklisted as a supply chain risk. And that's led to canceled contracts and some serious business uncertainty for the company. So, while Anthropic is battling the government, the wider market is facing its own reality check. The economics of AI are starting to show a very sharp divide between the financial winners and losers.
In a really stunning reversal, OpenAI is shutting down its viral video generator, Sora. This is a huge, high-profile failure, and it really highlights the novelty trap of generative AI, where all that initial excitement just couldn't be turned into a sustainable business.
And when you look at the numbers here, it's not hard to see why. The massive daily cost to run the model, reportedly as high as $15 million, just completely dwarfed its total lifetime revenue. The economics, they just weren't there. It wasn't viable. But here's the wild part. In stark contrast to Sora's failure, the first quarter of 2026 completely shattered all venture funding records. A staggering $300 billion were invested, creating this unprecedented concentration of capital right in the AI sector. So the key takeaway is where this capital is going. It's not spreading out to a bunch of different startups, it's being consolidated into just a handful of these big frontier labs like OpenAI and Anthropic. This creates a massive barrier to entry for smaller players, basically turning the industry into a contest between a few heavily funded giants.
Okay, so with all this technological and economic upheaval, how is the public actually feeling about it? Well, a new Gallup poll that just came out today reveals a pretty significant and frankly sobering shift in sentiment, especially among the youngest users.
Among Gen Z, AI's most active users, feelings of excitement have absolutely plummeted over the last year. And at the same time, negative emotions like anger and anxiety are on the rise. It really signals a growing cultural backlash.
In fact, as this chart makes pretty clear, nearly half of Gen Z employees now believe the risks of AI actually outweigh the benefits. This is a huge sign of growing disillusionment. We've moved past that initial phase of just wonder and into a period of deep skepticism about the technology's real impact.
So, what does this all mean when you put it together? Well, the events of today strongly suggest the AI industry has left that era of pure experimentation behind and has now entered a new, more contentious phase we could call high-friction maturity.
When you look at today's headlines, 3 big themes really jump out. First, the market is consolidating, and it's consolidating fast. Second, safety isn't just a philosophical debate anymore, it's a primary bottleneck to actually deploying new models. And third, the industry is facing a deepening crisis of public confidence that could threaten all its future progress.
Ultimately, the industry's success now seems to depend less on just raw computational power and more on its ability to build systems that are efficient, that are verifiably safe, and that are fundamentally trustworthy.
And that leaves us with this final thought. We are clearly in a race to build the world's most powerful machine, but today's events suggest the real challenge is building one that humans can actually believe in. That's your daily AI News Digest, sponsored by bestai.org. Thanks for watching.